Hi, and welcome to the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 1st of December. It's the first day of summer here in Sydney, Australia. My name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet, and I'm recording a day late because I've been out of town for 5 days out in the central west of New South Wales, and I'm a little bit croaky, and I think I brought back a lungful of dust from out there, so bear with me. And I'm out of practice because I'm recording a day late, but we've got some knitting to show on today's episode. I haven't had a great deal of time to work on my projects because I have been travelling and helping move a house, which took up a lot of time, but I'll get into that a bit later in just normal everyday chatter. But I also have the drawing of the Aussie knit along that's been running in the Give Me a Crown Ravelry group, so I thought that I should get that out of the way first up, because I'm sure that there's quite a few of you out there who are wanting to know if you've won. So we had 57 entries in the finished objects thread, which is just astounding. It's a lot more than I expected to see, so it's fantastic that people got behind the idea of using Australian yarns and Australian patterns to work on some projects. There were hats, socks, cowls, shawls, there were some scarves, a top, a little girl's dress, and some spinning and all sorts of projects, which was just fantastic. And I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who took part. There was a lot of chatter as well, people cheering each other on with their projects, so it's fantastic to see. For the finished objects thread, the prize is a skein of yarn. This is a purple yarn. It just isn't coming up on at least my screen as purple, but it definitely is a very vibrant purple. It was kindly donated by Atelier Yarn, who's a Sydney-based indie dyer, and she has an Etsy shop. And this is the Atelier Pinnacle 100% merino wool, single ply fingering, and it's 400 yards, 100 grams in the Purple Rain colourway. This is a single ply yarn, and it's a dream to work with, so someone's about to win this. So what I will do is I'll try to use Siri again to do the drawing. There were the first post and the last post were mine, so I'll do a drawing from 2 to 58. So random number between 2 and 58.
That would be 46.
That says 46. And number 46 is, wish I had a drum roll going here. Number 46 is Barbear, who knit a kinfolk hat in Darling Road DK Merino. So congratulations, Barbear. She has definitely been contributing a lot to both the finished objects and to the chatter. So congratulations. She's definitely a very worthy winner. And then for the chatter thread, the first and last posts in the thread were mine, and I did do a bit of chatter, so we'll keep our fingers crossed that I don't draw myself as many times as I did in the last knit along. So I'm going to be doing a random draw from 2 to 225. Random number between 2 and 225.
That would be 151.
Okay. Now I need to figure out how to find it. 100. Oh, okay. 151 is Barbear. I said that she'd been chatting a lot, so I think it's only fair, and I hope that you agree, that I draw another person for that chatter prize, which I forgot to mention. So this is the chatter prize are these wonderful stitch markers from Wonderwool Design, who has a shop on Etsy. So there's 4 stitch markers there, and that was kindly donated by Andrea, who is she has a podcast called Wonderwool, and also she has an Etsy shop. So I'll redo that drawing. Random number between 2 and 225.
It's 173.
There you go. 173. Fantastic. It's Miss Ohio. Am I showing the right one there? 173. And Miss Ohio is the amazing woman behind Miss Click Clack Yarns. So congratulations. And I'll be in touch with both Miss Ohio and Barbear after I upload this podcast to let you know that you've won. And thanks again to everyone who has taken part. It's I'm really happy to be able to give away prizes, and thanks to Atelier Yarn and Wonderwool Designs for the donated prizes. And it's fantastic that that everyone had a lot of fun. I haven't got a new knit-along planned as yet, but if anyone has any ideas, feel free to put them in the episode thread in the Ravelry group, and I'll probably start another one in the new year. The rest of this year is obviously everyone gets a bit busier as the holiday season kicks on, and I know that I may still be popping out of town a few times before the year's out, so but it's been a fantastic knit along, so thank you. On to finished objects. I don't have my finished object here. I showed the little sheep that I knit last week, and I think it had 1.5 socks at the time, so I finished off the socks, and I also knit a scarf, so I'll put in a picture here. So that's now gone off to its new home, and it was very warmly received. In works in progress, I haven't done any work on my shawl design, so it really needs to be worked on when I have more than 15 minutes here or there, and I can actually sit down and scribble on my notes to make sure that it's a readable pattern. So I'll get onto that as soon as I can, but I have a feeling now that it won't be ready until the new year. But thanks to the people who have offered to be test knitters. For my sock yarn blanket, I've only had the chance to put one square on, but it's a beautiful square. So it's this blue and white and reddish one, so that is from a yarn that was sent to me by Sandra from the Craftfulness podcast, and that's her own hand-dyed yarn, and she also sells these yarns in her Etsy shop, so both of these are from Sandra's Craftfulness shop. And while I was out west, I got to spend some time with my mum, and I was there a few weeks ago, if you have watched the podcast before, and I had taken my sock yarn blanket out there, and I was working on it, and my mum was asking me how many stitches I was casting on, and how I was doing the decreases, and I thought about sending her the memory blanket pattern because it's a free PDF from Georgie Hallam, if I can remember that correctly, Tiki Knits, anyway, and I'll make sure that it goes there. but in between being there and coming back, I forgot to send her the PDF. And when I got over there last week, I was just having a look around the lounge room and I found this. So that is my mum's start of a sock yarn blanket. Well, not quite a sock yarn blanket, but a memory blanket. She's using 8-ply yarn, and she's also using some sock yarns, but she's holding them double. And I think she was using 5mm or US size 8 needles, so it seems to be going very quickly. It's my height, so that's about 5'6". So we were just sort of measuring to see whether or not it needed to be any longer. She was thinking about adding one more extra square at the bottom and then building it up, but I have a feeling that she's going to have her sock yarn blanket done well before, or her memory blanket done well before I finish mine, even though she started it 6 months or more after I started mine. But she's using thicker yarn and much bigger needles, so. But it's fantastic that she got encouraged to give that a go. But most recently she's mainly been making crochet blankets, so I will one day show off a few of the granny square blankets that she's given me over the years. I've got one that I've probably had for 20 odd years, so I'll show them one day. Because I was travelling on trains a fair bit, I decided to cast on a vanilla sock, because I haven't done any work on my Arctic texture socks because I need to be sitting there with my iPad, and I didn't think that was going to work too well on the train. But I was sent this yarn from Sandra from the Craftfulness podcast recently in a swap that we did, and so I cast on a pair of vanilla socks using her yarn. So I've got a twisted rib cuff. I think there was 15 rows or so with 60 stitches, and then I think I've done about 50 rows of the leg, and I just need to measure now if that's suitable or if I might do 10 more rows before I start the ankle or start the heel. And it's knitting up really nicely. I like the colours in there. They're just little splashes of colour, and these are going to be socks for me because that's what Sandra said that I have to use the yarn for, and I'm very happy to do that because I've been knitting a lot of socks lately that have all been for gifts, so it's nice to be making some socks for myself. And I was travelling with the bag that she also sent me. It's got her Craftfulness logo on it, and it's a fantastic travel bag. So that's that one. Then I also received my order from Bendigo Woolen Mills that I mentioned last week. So I had ordered 2 balls of 4-ply luxury slate colourway. I had also ordered 3 balls of the luxury 4-ply in cream, and these are 200-gram balls, so they're pretty big. And then I also ordered 5 skeins of the sock yarn. So this has got 75% merino wool, 25% nylon, and I mentioned last week that this is thicker than average sock weight yarn. It's more like a sport weight, but it dyes up really nicely, so I got 5 skeins so that when I get a chance to, I'll break out the dye pots again and do some dyeing, because I've been wanting to do that. The reason I got 3 balls of the cream was that I can also try that out for dyeing and see how that works out. Even though it doesn't have the nylon, then it will work perfectly well for blanket squares. And These two are intended for a cardigan, and I don't yet know if I'm going to be doing the main part of it in the slate grey or in the cream, because I don't tend to wear, I don't think I have any cream cardigans or jackets or anything. I tend to wear blacks and greys and browns, but I'm planning to knit the Geisler cardigan by Sylvie Simola, who's a Finnish knitwear designer, and it's a cardigan that's knit top down with a garter long collar, and I really like the way that it looks in white, so I need to think about it a little bit more, about whether I swap the grey and the white or around. But last night I knit myself a swatch and I gave it a wash. So this is my swatch. This is knit on 3.5mm needles, and I've pretty much got gauge. So when I was before blocking it, my row gauge was correct, which there's my neighbour with his Harley Davidson again. My row gauge was spot on, which is completely rare for me. I think that's the first time that I've ever actually got row gauge when it's matted, but my stitch gauge was out. When I blocked it, I just took a bit more care to pull it out, so I think I was off by about 4 stitches per 4 inches. Stretched it out a bit and it looks okay. So because it's a 4-ply and it's knit on 3.5mm needles, it is a bit see-through, a little bit airy. So I'm just not sure if I knit the body with the grey, then it won't be quite so see-through. So if I'm wearing something dark underneath, then it won't matter so much. But I kind of like the idea of having a white cardigan. It feels a bit grown up or something after wearing so many dark clothes for so long. But we'll see. I expect I'll be casting that on later on this week if I don't have to head out of town. But I think it'll be a nice cardigan, and Sylvie is a fantastic knitwear designer. I've knit one of her patterns before, and it was a fun knit. One thing with the swatch, because I was knitting backwards and forwards, it occurred to me that I have worked on how I knit backwards and forwards to try to get a more even gauge on my rows, on the knit and purl rows. When I used to knit backwards and forwards, I found that every second row was bigger than every other second row. And what I did was I sort of paid attention to which rows were bigger, and I realised that I was knitting my knit side looser than my purl side, which from what I've read seems to be a bit unusual because usually it's the other way around. But I then adjusted my grip on the yarn. So each time when I'm knitting a purl side, I have a looser grip where I just put the yarn over my finger, whereas when I'm knitting the knit side, I put it over my finger and then loop it around my little finger, just to give it a little bit more tension. And that has evened out my rows so that they're fairly similar. So that's one way to tackle it if you're noticing that your rows are different heights. I think it's called rowing out or something like that. Another option that you can do is if you use a different size needle in each hand. So that way when you're knitting on the looser side, you can use a smaller needle than on the tighter side where you can use a bigger needle, I think. I'm sure that you can figure it out with a little bit of practice, but it made a huge difference. I think I'm also getting better at my consistency with knitting, so I could probably experiment with just keeping the same grip, but it seems to work. And I think that's it. I just want to say thanks again to everyone who took part in the Aussie Knit Along, and congratulations to the winners. And I have a little bit more to chatter about if you're interested in hearing about the Australian countryside. But if not, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. For those who are interested in the adventures, then one of them was with a bit of a reptile, so if you're not a fan of dangerous animals and things, then I'll put in a little timestamp over here about when to skip forward to. But my mum and I had been sitting on the veranda having a coffee one morning when I heard some rustling in the bushes, and I thought that her little local lizard had put on a bit of weight. And then I was looking past her and saw this head poke itself up from the garden, and suddenly realised it didn't actually have any legs, so it was a snake. We had a momentary sort of thing of confusion. I hopped up on the chair, Mum hopped up towards the front door to grab a pick, and I don't actually know exactly what happened at that point. I think Mum started hitting the concrete of the veranda with the pick just to create some vibrations in the ground, and the snake went back down into the garden, so it's about a 1 meter drop. I was then sort of standing there wondering what we're going to do. We couldn't leave it sitting in the flower bed because it wouldn't have been very nice. We would have constantly been wondering what's going on. So we decided that we would try to pour some water over it to get it to at least head off over the grass, just to head back into the paddocks. Mum poured some containers of water over it, and it did start moving, and I managed to get a couple of pictures. So if you don't want to see snake pictures, just close your eyes now for a few seconds until you hear me talking again. So this is what it looked like. And it was probably about 1 meter long and about 4 centimeters across, but it started moving towards the stairs up to the veranda, and then also in that direction was the paddock that the sheep were on. So I just threw some more water over it. It went back into the flower bed. We spent some time trying to hose it out, and there was a drain sort of opening underneath in the flower bed, so we think that it's probably gone in there. There would have been a small crack that it could slide through, and it probably got annoyed that we were pummeling it with water, but it didn't come out. We didn't see it leave, but it must have left at some point. We didn't see it again, so yeah, that was a bit of an adventure. It's the second time that I've seen a snake in real life, but it's the first time, or like out in the open, but it's the first time that I've actually seen one properly wriggling. The only other one that I've seen was up in the Blue Mountains, and it was comatose from the cold and sort of just slightly shook its head, and that's about it. But this one actually moved and was poking its tongue out, and so that was interesting. And we don't know exactly what kind of snake it was. It could have been is it an eastern brown snake or something, which is the second deadliest snake, or it could have been some other kind of brown snake, which aren't so deadly, but they're still venomous, and you still don't want to get bitten by them. But we were being very careful. I only took the photos when I knew that I was still a metre higher than it was, and I had another door that I could leap through if I needed to. So we weren't trying to do anything silly, and we would have chopped its head off if we had to, which would have completely and utterly it would. I'm glad that we didn't. Let's put it that way. I'm a vegetarian and I do like my animals, so I'd prefer not to do that. But if it's a case of life and death, then you've sadly got to do what you've got to do. But on to happier things. The sheep, the neighbour's sheep, were in the paddock and very chatty, so I took some footage of them. Quite a few of them are still very, very pregnant and just about to pop. One of them that was in particular chatty, my mum said, was probably hand raised by the neighbours, that they had to look after one of them because it had been neglected by its mother. So I think that's the one that came up and was chatting a lot. But I'll put in some video footage here at the end of some of the sheep because they're so cute. And yeah, they're a lot of fun. But they've got little personalities, and watching the twins all hop along and play with each other is fun. And that's it. I should be recording next week's episode as normal. I'm just waiting to see if I do need to hop out of town for a little bit again, just because the house move is 150 kilometres apart, so at times there's things that need to be happening in a few different places, so I'm trying to lend a hand as much as possible just to make it easier for the people who are moving. And yeah, that's it. I'm out of practice, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. 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 Bah. Bah. What's up? You're very pregnant, aren't you? Yes. Yes, you're very pregnant. Bah. What's up? What's up, sheepy? Scratchy head. Oh, you got a scratchy head.